This is the Wednesday Mind Emission edition on the Toad Cam, coming from New York, Toad City. The holidays. What's up? I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, wherein they had studied the distinction between wealthy people. I'm not sure how they qualified these people as being, quote, the elite, versus people who are substantially less than the elite. And it was an interesting study, very interesting, because the purpose of it, the aim of this little bit of investigation, was to find out how the difference in ability to detect emotion, to calibrate to emotion, to sense congruity and incongruity. I'm not entirely sure how precisely one would language this. I guess we would call it basic emotional intelligence. And all those things come into emotional intelligence. Congruity detection, a sense of ecology, ability to calibrate where people are at versus some standards. Wealthier people, the wealthy, I suppose they're talking to very wealthy people versus, I suppose, they're talking to working class people. This was not exactly specified in the Wall Street Journal article, but one could project a number of potential interpretations on that. Apparently there's a very significant penalty in terms of emotional smarts and in terms of congruity detection that comes along with being part of the elite or part of very wealthy people. Seem to have, generally speaking, one has to always be careful of generalizations, but generally speaking, quite diminished, quite reduced capacity for emotional intelligence, quite reduced capacity to pick up on minimal cues, I suppose, quite reduced capacity to sense where other people are at. I guess you would also call that like a kind of sort of an F2 position or an F3 position, F2 to F3 if we're talking in Grinder NLP language, kind of intuitive ability to occupy the other person's point of view or see the situation from an F3 outside observer point of view. So eliteness, power, wealth seems to come with some deep costs in terms of the capacity to put oneself in the position of another, and really in terms of the ability to adopt outside perceptual positions. It seems like the more elite one becomes, the more one is kind of runneled or channeled into a single perceptual position. And that very much jibed with observations and conversations I've had with people over the years about the difference between the wealthy and the non-wealthy. And another feature I think it's worth thinking about is as one ascends the kind of the ladder of financial security, or the ladder of eliteness, the world becomes very personal. Things are much more personalized, and people take things much more personally. So anyone that's serving or working with the increasingly wealth power elite status type people realize that everything has to be handled very carefully, very gingerly, very emotionally. You could say just the wrong thing or rub someone the wrong way in a way that would have insignificance. It would be beneath consideration for someone at, say, the working class level. Could be horribly offensive, and actually damage a negotiation, damage a business relationship, damage a personal relationship. The tiniest thing can be perceived as very personal and very offensive, and very much sort of against that person's sense of their identity at the upper level. So businesses that are catering to, working with, hand-holding, ferret handling, the elite type people, the very wealthy type people, realize that they are in a business of being emotionally hypersensitized. In a sense, they've got to occupy have the capacity, and if someone's going to be hired to work with, for, around this type of people, they actually have to develop sort of an extreme F2, F3 capacity to constantly be monitoring how this other person might be responding, and constantly having really superior calibration skills and superior congruity detection skills to pick up the subtle emotional shifts that say the member of the consuming elite type person might not be, and probably isn't. As a matter of fact, chances are excellent they're completely unconscious of these shifts and emotional changes, sort of pre-conscious changes. But those kind of changes, the people serving them or working for them have to be acutely attuned to. So it appears that this very odd thing happens as one becomes sort of more working class, more sort of in the I guess you would say the borrower class, the people that have to support themselves through constant use of credit, through credit cards and hard money lenders and things like that, actually develop a much, just by social pressures, develop a much stronger ability to read emotion and calibrate emotion and detect congruity and incongruity. And after people have spent, especially a generation or two, generationally wealthy people, seem to become actually what we would call sort of perceptually retarded. However, as they move up the sort of level of perceptual retardation and this sort of primitivizing of their emotional lives, and often you will find such people are also tend to be pronouncedly neurotic. You get a lot of really weird hypersensitive neuroses appearing in this world of these hypersensitive people. And I think that has a lot to do also with problem solving. I think that the mind needs to be in a continuous state of problem solving, and healthy thinking and healthy adaptation to life means that one is very skillful at micro to medium scale and large scale, all these different scales of problem solving. The healthy mind is constantly engaged in problem solving activities, where when the people who have become the children and the grandchildren of the very wealthy have no experience solving problems. There are always other people solving problems for them. But I've always noticed that people that are continuously involved in the problem-solving act of all of the things that life throws at you at every level tend to be far healthier, more balanced people. So I kind of conclude from that problem solving is really, the mind is a problem-solving computer. And for the mind to really be healthy and ticking along at its personal best, it has to be involved in a great deal of problem solving, and probably even unconsciously, skillfully creating multiple classes of problems for itself in order to maintain that level of psychic tone. So that's a very, very interesting way of looking at problems. If someone's in a situation where problems keep coming up, maybe those problems keep coming up because the mind really understands at an unconscious level it wants to continuously be challenged in order to maintain this kind of level of basic psychic vigor that appears to really disappear as people ascend the money pyramid. So that's a kind of interesting reverse Christmas thought. I'll leave you with that for our Wednesday Mind and Mission, and we'll probably pick this up on Thursday or Friday.